The palace guards had never seen Commander Marcus move so fast. His radio crackled with urgent codes as he watched the security footage Lord Ashford's son, Daniel, carrying Princess Sophie into a black van, her small hand reaching back toward the window. Within minutes, sirens wailed through the kingdom's capital. What started as a quiet Sunday in the royal residence had become the most shocking scandal the crown had ever faced. A child of the throne was missing, and one man was determined to bring her home, no matter the cost. This story will shake you to your core. If you love royal drama, unexpected betrayals, and edge-of-your-seat pursuits, you have to watch this. Hit that like button, subscribe for more gripping tailies, and share this with someone who loves a good mystery. Don't miss what happens next, trust us. You won't believe how this ends. The sun was shining bright and warm on this beautiful Sunday morning. Inside the royal palace, everything seemed peaceful and normal. Birds were singing in the gardens. The palace walls, painted in cream color, looked golden in the sunshine. Servants moved quietly through the hallways. The king was reading newspapers in his study. The queen was having tea in the morning room. It was just another quiet Sunday, or so everyone thought. In the East Gardens, 7-year-old Princess Sophie was playing. She wore a pretty pink dress with white flowers on it. Her long blonde hair moved in the wind as she ran between the flower beds. She was laughing and playing with her favorite toy, a small doll she called Emma. Her bodyguard, Officer James, stood near the garden entrance, watching her carefully from a distance. He made sure nobody got too close to the princess. This was his job. He did it well every single day. Princess Sophie was a happy and kind child. She loved playing outdoors. She loved running in the gardens. She loved picking flowers and making little flower crowns. Everyone at the palace loved her. The servants smiled when they saw her. The cooks made special food for her. Even the king, who was usually serious and busy, would smile and laugh when Sophie came to visit him. Officer James looked at his watch. It was 10:30 in the morning. He had been watching Sophie for 2 hours now. She was playing happily, and everything was safe. Nobody had come near the gardens. The palace security system was very good. High walls surrounded the garden. Guards stood at every gate. A camera watched every corner. It was impossible for a stranger to get inside. Or so everyone believed. Then Officer James's phone rang. It was his supervisor calling from the security office. "James, we need you to come inside for a few minutes. We have a problem with the security computer system. Can you come help us?" James looked at Sophie. She was still playing safely, far away from the garden walls. He could see her clearly. She was playing with her doll, making it dance and sing. She was having so much fun. "Okay, I am coming," James said into his phone. "But I will be back in 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at most. The princess is playing safely. I can see her from here. He should not have left." Later, people would say that over and over again. He should not have left. But in that moment, James thought it was safe. The garden was empty. Nobody else was around. He thought 5 minutes would be fine. James walked inside the palace and went down to the security office. He did not know that his 5 minutes away would change everything.
Outside the palace walls, a man named Daniel Ashford sat in a car, watching and waiting. He was thin and nervous looking. His eyes were dark and empty. He had been sitting in that car every morning for 3 months watching the palace. He knew Princess Sophie's schedule. He knew when she played in the gardens. He knew when Officer James took his breaks. He knew everything. Daniel was not a normal man. Something in his mind was broken. He believed strange and crazy things. He believed that Princess Sophie was actually his daughter. He believed that his father, Lord Ashford, had loved the Queen secretly, and Sophie was their child together. This was not true at all. Nobody else believed this. But Daniel believed it with all his heart. Daniel's father, Lord Ashford, had worked at the palace as a royal advisor. But 3 months ago, he had argued with the king about how things should be done at the palace. The king became angry with him. Lord Ashford was fired from his job. He had to leave the palace. This made Lord Ashford very upset. He had wanted that job for many years. After his father was fired, Daniel became even more crazy in his thinking. He told his father that Sophie was his daughter. He said they should take Sophie away and keep her for themselves. Lord Ashford told his son to stop thinking these crazy thoughts. "This is not true," he said. "Stop this nonsense." But Daniel would not stop. He kept thinking and planning and watching. For 3 months, Daniel watched Princess Sophie. He learned her routine. He learned that she played in the gardens on Sunday mornings. He learned that Officer James always looked tired by 10:30. He learned everything he needed to know. On this Sunday morning, Daniel was ready. He had planned this day for a very long time. He wore dark clothes so nobody would see him easily. He had a black van parked on a quiet road near the palace. He had packed food and water and blankets in the van. He had planned to drive far away, to a small house in the mountains where nobody would find them. When Officer James walked inside the palace, Daniel moved quickly. He could not believe it was really happening. For 3 months he had dreamed about this moment. Now it was real. Daniel ran to the garden wall. It was 7 feet tall, but he was strong. He grabbed the top and pulled himself up. His heart was beating very fast. He could see Sophie now. She was still playing with her doll. She had not seen him yet. He jumped down into the garden. His feet made a soft sound on the ground. Sophie heard the sound. She looked up. She saw a strange man running toward her. She did not know who he was. "Hello, Sophie," Daniel said, trying to smile. But his smile looked scary, not kind. Sophie took a step backward. "I do not know you," she said. She was a smart child. She knew she should not talk to strangers. Her mother had taught her this. "It is okay," Daniel said, coming closer. "I am here to take you to your real home." "No," Sophie said. She turned and started to run. But Daniel was faster. He grabbed her hand. Sophie screamed and tried to pull away. "Help! Help!" she cried. She kicked and fought. She was small and brave, but she was not strong enough. Daniel picked her up and carried her toward the garden wall. Sophie screamed and cried. She called for Officer James. She called for her mother. Nobody heard her. Nobody came to help. Daniel climbed the wall with Sophie in his arms. It was difficult because she was fighting so hard. But he managed to get to the other side. Then he ran toward the black van. He could see it parked on the quiet road. His plan was working. He put Sophie in the van and closed the door. She was crying and screaming inside. "Let me out. I want my mother. I want my mother," she cried. Daniel got into the driver's seat and started the engine. The van began to move. Nobody had seen them. Nobody knew what had happened. 15 minutes later, Officer James came back outside. His heart immediately filled with fear. The garden was empty. Where was Sophie? "Sophie?" he called. "Sophie? Where are you?" Nothing. No answer. James ran through the garden, calling her name again and again. But Princess Sophie was gone. She had disappeared into thin air. With shaking hands, James pressed his radio button. "We have an emergency," he said, his voice full of panic. "Princess Sophie is missing. I repeat, Princess Sophie is missing from the East Garden." Within seconds, alarms sounded throughout the palace. Guards ran everywhere. The king and queen were told immediately. The queen fainted when she heard the news. The king's face turned white like paper. Their daughter, their precious little daughter, had vanished. The most shocking day in the kingdom's history had just begun. The moment Officer James's voice came through the radio, everything at the palace stopped. Guards dropped what they were doing. Servants froze in place. The queen screamed when she heard the news. The king's face became hard and cold like stone. Their daughter was gone. Taken by someone. This was every parent's worst nightmare. Within 2 minutes, alarms were ringing throughout the entire palace. Red lights flashed in every hallway. Every entrance was locked down. Nobody could leave. Nobody could enter. The palace, which had been a peaceful place just moments ago, turned into a place of fear and confusion. The king immediately called the national police. He spoke to the chief of police himself. "My daughter has been kidnapped," he said, his voice shaking with anger and fear. "Find her. I do not care what you have to do. Find my daughter and bring her home safely." The chief of police had never heard the king speak in such a way before. He immediately understood how serious this was. He made one phone call and suddenly, every police officer in the kingdom was alerted. This was now the biggest emergency in the country. Commander Marcus takes charge. At the palace, there was one man who the king trusted more than anyone else. His name was Commander Marcus. He was the head of the royal security team. For 15 years he had protected the king, the queen, and all the royal children. He had never failed once. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. Everyone at the palace respected him. When the alarm sounded, Marcus was in the security room looking at computer screens. He saw the message flash across one screen, Princess Sophie missing from East Garden. His heart stopped. In all his 15 years of protecting the royal family, this had never happened. He had trained his team. He had checked every security system. He had planned for every possible danger. But somehow, someone had gotten past all of it. Marcus ran through the palace to the king's office. The king was pacing back and forth, his face dark with worry and anger. The queen was sitting on a chair, crying. She held a photo of Sophie in her hands, a photo of Sophie smiling and laughing. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, bowing slightly. "I saw the alarm. Tell me everything you know." The king explained what had happened. Officer James had stepped away for a few minutes. When he came back, Sophie was gone from the garden. There was no sign of her. Nobody had seen anything. Marcus's mind was already working. He had been trained to think fast in emergencies. "How long ago?" he asked. 17 minutes, the king replied. 17 minutes since we discovered she was missing. Marcus nodded. 17 minutes meant the kidnapper could be 30 or 40 kilometers away by now, if they were driving fast on the highways. But they might also be hiding somewhere nearby. They might not have gone far. Marcus had to think about all possibilities. "I will find her," Marcus said to the king. "I give you my word. I will find your daughter." Marcus rushed back to the security office. He gathered his team around him. There were 10 security officers waiting for his orders. They were brave and smart. They had trained together for years. "Listen carefully," Marcus said. "Princess Sophie was taken from the East Garden approximately 20 minutes ago. The kidnapper is still unknown. But we have security cameras everywhere. Let us look at the video." One officer named Sarah immediately pulled up the security footage. Everyone watched the screens carefully. They saw Sophie playing in the garden. They saw Officer James walk inside the palace. Then they saw something terrible, a man in dark clothes jumping over the garden wall. He was moving fast and purposefully. He clearly knew what he was doing. The man ran towards Sophie. Sophie tried to run away, but the man caught her. She screamed and kicked, but the man was strong. He picked her up and carried her toward the wall. Sophie was fighting and crying, but she was too small to escape. "There." Marcus pointed at the screen. "Can you zoom in on his face?" Sarah zoomed in. The man's face became clearer on the screen. It was a thin face with dark eyes. He looked nervous and crazy. Marcus stared at the face for a long time. Something about it seemed familiar. He had seen this face before, but he could not remember where. Then it hit him like a lightning bolt. "That is Daniel Ashford," Marcus said quietly. "That is Lord Ashford's son." The room became completely silent. Everyone knew who Lord Ashford was. He had been a royal advisor until 3 months ago, when he had fought with the king and was fired. Everyone also knew that Lord Ashford had a son. Some people had heard that the son was strange and said crazy things. "Call the national police immediately," Marcus ordered. "Tell them to look for Daniel Ashford. He is our suspect." He took Princess Sophie. Sarah picked up the phone and made the call. Within minutes, the police chief was on the line with Marcus. They talked about what to do next. Within 1 hour, the entire kingdom was looking for Princess Sophie. Police officers were sent to every main road leading out of the capital city. Every highway had a roadblock. Officers stopped every black van they saw. They checked every vehicle carefully. Airport security was put on high alert. Officers were told to look for Daniel Ashford and a small blonde-haired girl. If anyone tried to board a plane, the officers would stop them immediately. The police also went to Daniel Ashford's home. They broke down his door and searched everywhere. But Daniel was not there. The house was empty. On his desk they found maps and plans. They found pictures of Sophie. They found notebooks filled with crazy writing about Sophie being Daniel's daughter. It was clear that Daniel had planned this kidnapping for a long time. The waiting and worry. Back at the palace, the king and queen waited for news. The queen could not stop crying. She kept looking at Sophie's photo. She kept thinking about her daughter, scared, alone, with a stranger who was crazy and dangerous. "We will find her," the king kept saying. But even he did not sound sure. He held his wife's hand. They waited together, hoping and praying that their daughter was safe. Marcus worked through the night. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He watched the security cameras. He looked at maps. He tried to guess where Daniel would go. Where would a crazy man take a kidnapped princess? What was his plan? Every hour that passed felt like a year. Every telephone call made their hearts jump with hope or crash with disappointment. Police officers reported seeing suspicious vehicles, but they were always false alarms. No sign of Sophie. No sign of Daniel. But Commander Marcus did not give up. He could not give up. He had promised the king that he would find Sophie, and Marcus always kept his promises. Somewhere in the kingdom, a 7-year-old girl was crying for her mother. And Commander Marcus would find her no matter what it took. The manhunt was on. The entire kingdom was searching. But Daniel Ashford had disappeared like a ghost into the night. It was now 2:15 in the afternoon. 5 hours had passed since Princess Sophie disappeared. 5 hours of searching, waiting, and worrying. The police had checked hundreds of vehicles. They had stopped cars at every roadblock. But there was no sign of Daniel Ashford or the black van. In a small village called Clearwater, about 60 kilometers away from the capital city, an old man named Henry was sitting in his front yard. He was drinking tea and watching the road pass by his house. Henry had lived in this village for 40 years. He knew everyone. He knew every car that drove through. A black van drove past his house. Henry did not think much about it at first, but then he remembered. He had seen a message on his phone that morning. It was from the police. They were looking for a black van. They were looking for a kidnapped princess. Henry looked at the van more carefully. He could not see inside very well because the windows were dark. But his old heart told him something was wrong. Without thinking too much, Henry picked up his phone and called the police. "Hello, this is Henry Morris from Clearwater Village," he said to the police operator. "I just saw a black van drive past my house. I think it might be the one you are looking for. The one with the kidnapped princess." The police operator's heart jumped. "Are you sure?" she asked excitedly. "I am not 100% sure," Henry said. "But something felt wrong about it. The driver looked nervous. The windows are very dark. And I do not see many black vans in this small village." "Thank you," the police operator said. "Thank you very much. Please stay safe." Within 30 seconds, this information reached Commander Marcus. Within 1 minute, Marcus was speaking to the chief of police. Within 2 minutes, every police car in that area was alerted. "We have a possible sighting," Marcus said into his radio. "Black van heading northeast on the Clearwater Road." All units moved to that location immediately. Commander Marcus himself got into a police car. A young officer named David was driving. David was nervous because he knew what they were searching for, a man with a kidnapped princess. As they drove toward Clearwater, Marcus checked his weapon and made sure his radio was working properly. "Faster," Marcus told David. "But be careful. We need to get there alive." David pushed down on the accelerator. The police car moved faster and faster through the city streets, then onto the open highway. Trees and fields passed by in a blur. Other police cars were also racing toward the same location. There were 7 police cars in total, all with their lights flashing and sirens wailing. The sound of the sirens filled the air like a warning that something terrible was about to happen. Daniel seized the danger. Inside the black van, Daniel was driving carefully. He was trying not to be noticed. He was trying to look normal. He was driving slowly through small villages and quiet country roads. He did not know that he had already been spotted. But then Daniel looked in his mirror. He saw something that made his blood turn cold. Police cars. Red and blue lights flashing. Sirens screaming. They were coming toward him. Daniel's hands shook on the steering wheel. His crazy mind began to race with fear. They had found him. They knew where he was. He had to escape. He had to run. "No, no, no," Daniel said to himself, shaking his head. "This is not happening. This is not happening." In the back of the van, Sophie heard the sirens. She did not know what was happening. She had been crying and calling for her mother for hours. She was tired and scared and thirsty. "Please let me go," she cried. "Please, I want my mother. I want to go home." Daniel did not answer her. He was too busy thinking about how to escape. The chase begins. When Daniel saw the police cars getting closer, he made a decision. He pressed down on the accelerator. The van's engine roared. The van jumped forward and started moving very fast. "He is running," one of the police officers shouted into his radio. "The van is accelerating. The chase is on." Commander Marcus heard this information. His jaw became tight. "All units stay focused," he ordered. "Do not take any dangerous risks. The princess is in that van. Safety first." The black van turned left onto a narrow country road. The road was not very wide. There were trees on both sides. The van was driving very fast now. It was going 40 kilometers per hour faster than it was safe to drive on this kind of road. The police cars followed. David was driving Marcus's car. He was a good driver, but even he was nervous. The road was curving and twisting. It would be easy to crash on a road like this if you were driving too fast. "Stay focused," Marcus told David. "Do not let him get away." A desperate man driving crazy. Daniel was driving like a crazy person now. He was not thinking clearly. His broken mind was only thinking about one thing: escape. He did not care about safety. He did not care about the princess. He only wanted to get away. The van swerved around curves. Its tires made screaming sounds. The whole van was shaking and moving side to side. Sophie in the back was being thrown around like a toy. "Help! Help me!" Sophie cried, but her voice was too small to be heard over the engine and the sirens. The road ahead had a sharp turn. Daniel was driving so fast that he could not slow down in time. The van's front wheel went off the road onto the dirt. Dirt flew up into the air. For a moment it looked like the van would crash right then. But Daniel managed to pull it back onto the road. "He is driving recklessly," one police officer said. "He is going to kill someone." Commander Marcus watched the chase from his car. He could see the van ahead moving from side to side on the road. He could see the police cars behind and beside it. This was the most dangerous chase he had ever been part of. The road gets worse. The road ahead became even more narrow and twisting. There were hills and valleys. There were tight curves that seemed to go left and right and left again. It was a road that was not meant for high-speed driving. Daniel was driving 80 kilometers per hour on a road where you should only drive 30 or 40. The van was bouncing and jumping. The metal of the van was creaking and groaning with the stress. Police cars were now all around him. One was ahead of him. Two were behind him. One was trying to come around to the side. Daniel saw a small bridge ahead. It was a narrow bridge that crossed over a river. He did not slow down. He drove straight for it at high speed. "He is going to crash," Marcus said, seeing what was about to happen. The van hit the bridge hard. The metal of the bridge shook. But the van made it across. On the other side of the bridge there was a sharp turn. Daniel tried to turn the van, but he was going too fast. The van's back wheel started to slide. The van began to rotate. Everything was happening in slow motion and super fast at the same time. Sophie screamed inside the van. She knew something terrible was about to happen. Daniel's hands pulled hard on the steering wheel. Sweat was pouring down his face. He was trying to control the van, but it was too late. Physics was stronger than his fear. The van was sliding out of control. Just ahead there was a big metal barrier at the side of the road. The barrier was there to stop cars from going off the cliff into the river below. The van was sliding toward that barrier. "No!" Daniel screamed. And then everything stopped being clear and fast. Everything became a crash. Time seemed to stop. The world became silent for just 1 second. Then everything exploded into noise and chaos. The black van hit the metal barrier hard. Very hard. The sound of metal hitting metal was loud and terrible. Glass broke into 1,000 pieces. The van's front bumper crumpled like paper. The hood of the van folded up like it was made of cloth. The impact was so strong that the van flipped. It went up on 2 wheels. For a moment it looked like it might flip completely over and fall into the river below. But it did not. It came back down on all 4 wheels with a crash that shook the entire ground. Smoke came out from under the hood. The engine was broken. The van was not going to move again. Inside the van, Sophie was thrown against the metal walls. She hit her head on a metal shelf. Pain shot through her small body. She cried out, a weak, scared cry. She thought this was the end. She thought she was going to die. In the front seat, Daniel's head hit the steering wheel hard. His nose started bleeding. He felt dizzy and confused. For a moment, he did not know where he was or what was happening. Then he remembered. The police. They were coming. He had to run. But when Daniel tried to open the driver's door, nothing happened. The door was stuck. It would not open. He tried again and again, pulling on the handle with all his strength. But the metal had bent in the crash. The door was locked shut. The police cars came to a stop in a circle around the crashed van. Officers jumped out with their weapons ready. They did not know if Daniel had a gun. They did not know if he was dangerous in other ways. They had to be very careful. Commander Marcus was the first one to reach the van. His weapon was in his hand, but he held it carefully. He was looking for Sophie. He was looking for any sign that the princess was alive. Daniel Ashford. Marcus shouted at the van. Come out slowly with your hands up. Come out now. Inside the van, Daniel heard this command. His crazy mind was still thinking that he could escape. He looked around the van desperately, looking for another way out. There was a small window in the back doors. Maybe he could break it and escape into the forest. But before he could do anything, another police officer smashed the front windshield with a long metal stick. Glass fell everywhere. The windshield cracked and broke into pieces. "Come out," the officer shouted again. "Come out right now." Daniel knew he could not escape. There were too many police officers. They were all around him. They had weapons. He was trapped. Slowly, Daniel opened the driver's door. It opened just enough for him to squeeze out. He raised his hands above his head. "I am coming out," he said. "I am coming out." Officers rushed forward. They grabbed his arms and pulled him to the ground. They put handcuffs on his wrists. They read him his rights. He was under arrest for kidnapping a princess, finding Sophie. But Commander Marcus did not care about Daniel. He only cared about one thing, finding Sophie. He ran to the back of the van and opened the doors. "Sophie," he called. "Princess Sophie. Are you in here?" For one terrible moment there was no sound. Marcus's heart filled with fear. What if Sophie was hurt badly? What if she could not answer? Then from the darkness inside the van, he heard a small voice. "Yes," Sophie said weakly. "I am here. I am scared." Marcus felt tears come to his eyes. Sophie was alive. She was alive. He climbed into the van carefully. In the darkness, he could see a small figure sitting against the wall. She was covered with dust and dirt. There was blood on her forehead where she had hit it. But she was alive. She was moving. She was breathing. "It is okay," Marcus said gently. He spoke in a soft, kind voice. "It is okay now. You are safe. I am Commander Marcus. I am here to help you." Sophie looked at him with big, frightened eyes. She did not know this man. But his voice was kind. His face was kind. She could see that he was not like Daniel. "Where is my mother?" Sophie asked. Her voice was very small and weak. "Your mother is waiting for you," Marcus said. "She is waiting at the palace. She has been worried about you all day. But now I am going to take you to her. You are going to be okay." Marcus carefully lifted Sophie into his arms. She was so light, like picking up a doll. He carried her out of the van. The other police officers and medical workers were waiting. There were ambulances with doctors and nurses. They were ready to help. "She is hurt but alive," Marcus told the medical workers. "Please take care of her. She is our princess." The medical workers took Sophie gently. They put her on a stretcher. They put a special blanket around her to keep her warm. They began checking her body for injuries. A doctor looked at the bump on her head. "She is very brave," the doctor said. "She is going to be okay. She does not have any broken bones. But we need to take her to the hospital to check everything." One of the medical workers gave Sophie water to drink. Sophie drank it slowly. It felt good on her dry throat. She had not had anything to drink all day. "When will I see my mother?" Sophie asked again. "Very soon," Marcus said. He was standing next to the stretcher, looking down at the princess. "Your mother is going to be so happy to see you. She loves you very much." Daniel's end. Officers pushed Daniel into a police car. He was crying now. His face was covered with blood from his nose. His hands were handcuffed behind his back. He looked small and weak and broken. Commander Marcus watched as the police car drove away with Daniel inside. He thought about how this man had planned everything so carefully. He had watched the palace for months. He had planned to kidnap a 7-year-old girl. He had believed crazy things in his broken mind. And now his crazy dream was over. He was going to prison. Marcus turned back to look at Sophie in the ambulance. She was drinking more water. The doctor was wrapping a bandage around her head. She looked small and hurt, but she was brave. She did not cry anymore. She was trying to be strong. "You did good work today," an officer said to Marcus, patting him on the back. Marcus just nodded. He was too tired to speak. But inside his heart he felt happy. The princess was safe. She was alive. She was going home to her mother. The ambulance left the crash site with Sophie inside. The sirens wailed as it drove toward the city and the palace. Sophie looked out the window at the trees and roads passing by. "Am I really going home?" she asked the doctor. "Yes," the doctor said with a smile. "You are really going home. Your mother is waiting." Sophie closed her eyes. She thought about her mother's face. She thought about her comfortable bed. She thought about her toys and her dolls. She had been so scared. She had thought she might never see these things again. But now she was safe. Now she was going home. And at the palace, the king and queen were waiting. They did not know yet that Sophie had been found. But soon they would know. Soon their daughter would be home. Soon their fear and worry would turn into joy. The next morning, Buckingham Palace called an emergency press conference. Reporters from around the world gathered outside. Cameras lined up in rows. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. Prince William walked out to the podium. He wore a dark suit. His face was serious but calm. The crowd went quiet. "Good morning," William began. "I'm here to address the situation regarding Thomas Bennet, the royal guard who was dismissed earlier this week." Reporters leaned forward. Cameras flashed. This was the moment everyone was waiting for. "I made a mistake," William said clearly. "A serious mistake. I saw a guard who wasn't performing his duties correctly, and I acted immediately. But I didn't ask the most important question. Why?" He paused. The silence was heavy. Had I asked that question, I would have learned that Thomas Bennet was working 2 jobs. Not for luxury. Not for greed. But to pay for his 7-year-old daughter's cancer treatment. He was exhausted because he was being a good father. And I punished him for it. Some reporters gasped. Others started writing quickly. William continued. "The Royal Guard has strict rules for good reasons. Safety is paramount. But rules should never blind us to human compassion. As leaders, we must enforce standards while also understanding the people who serve under us." He looked directly into the cameras. "Thomas Bennet is not the villain in this story. I am. I failed to see a man who was struggling. I failed to ask questions before acting. For that, I am deeply sorry." The crowd erupted with questions. William raised his hand. "I have already met with Mr. Bennet and his family. I have apologized personally. The Royal Foundation will cover all of his daughter Emma's medical expenses for the next year. Additionally, we are creating the Emma Bennet Emergency Fund, which will help all palace employees and their families who face similar medical crises." More camera flashes. More shouting questions. "Furthermore," William said, his voice growing stronger, "we are reviewing all employment policies across the royal household. We will implement new procedures that require supervisors to investigate sudden performance changes before taking disciplinary action. We will also provide better support systems for employees facing personal hardships." A reporter shouted, "Will Thomas Bennet get his job back?" William nodded. "Mr. Bennet has been offered his position back with full honors, once his daughter's treatment is complete and he feels ready to return. But that decision is entirely his. Right now, his place is with his family." Another reporter asked, "What does this teach us about the royal family?" William took a deep breath. "It teaches us that we are human. We make mistakes. But what matters is how we respond to those mistakes. Do we hide behind titles and protocols? Or do we admit when we're wrong and try to make things right? I choose the latter." The press conference ended. But the impact was just beginning. Within hours, the story spread across the world. But this time, the headlines were different. "Prince William admits mistake, shows true leadership. Royal apology demonstrates courage and compassion. Prince takes responsibility, helps family in need." Social media exploded with positive reactions. People who had criticized William now praised him. They said he showed real character by admitting his mistake. "This is what leadership looks like," one person wrote. "He could have made excuses, but he took responsibility," another said. "The royal family just became more human to me," someone else posted. The hashtag changed from hashtag justice for Thomas to hashtag real leadership. Back in the small apartment, Thomas and Sarah watched the press conference on their old television. Emma sat between them, not fully understanding but sensing something important was happening. "He really did it," Sarah whispered. "He stood up there and admitted he was wrong." Thomas wiped his eyes. Not many people in power would do that. The phone rang constantly. Friends and family called to congratulate them. Strangers sent messages of support. The story had touched something deep in people's hearts. 2 days later, Emma had her doctor appointment. This time, Thomas and Sarah didn't worry about how to pay. The money was there. The treatment could continue. The doctor examined Emma carefully. "Her numbers are improving," he said with a smile. "The treatment is working. If we stay on track, I'm very optimistic about her recovery." Sarah grabbed Thomas's hand and squeezed it tight. Those were the words they had prayed to hear for months. Emma looked up at her parents. "Does this mean I'm getting better?" Thomas picked her up and hugged her. "Yes, baby girl. You're getting better." Emma smiled. "Good. Because I have a lot of drawings I still want to make." 6 months passed. Emma's health improved dramatically. Her tumor was shrinking. Her energy returned. She went back to school full-time. She laughed and played like a normal 7-year-old should. Thomas received a formal letter from Buckingham Palace. His position as royal guard was waiting for him whenever he was ready. But Thomas took his time. He spent those months with Emma, taking her to school, reading her bedtime stories, playing in the park, making up for all the time he had lost while working 2 jobs. The Emma Bennett Emergency Fund helped 12 other families in its first year. Palace employees who faced medical emergencies no longer had to suffer in silence or work themselves to exhaustion. Prince William personally met with each family. He listened to their stories. He made sure they got the help they needed. One afternoon, Thomas returned to Buckingham Palace. Not as a guard yet, just to visit. William had invited him for tea. They sat in a private room. No cameras. No reporters. Just 2 men who had learned important lessons. "How is Emma?" William asked. "She's doing wonderful," Thomas said. "The doctors say if things continue like this, she'll make a full recovery." William smiled. "I'm so glad. And you? Are you ready to come back?" Thomas nodded. "Yes, I think I am. But this time I know I have support. I know I can ask for help if I need it." "That's exactly right," William said. "We all need help sometimes. Admitting that isn't weakness. It's wisdom." They talked for an hour. About fatherhood. About duty. About the balance between rules and compassion. As Thomas left the palace that day, he looked at the guards standing at their posts. He would soon stand there again. But he would be different now. He had learned that being strong doesn't mean never struggling. It means having the courage to keep going even when things are hard. Prince William watched from a window as Thomas walked away. He thought about his grandmother's words again. Being royal isn't about wearing a crown. It's about serving people. Really seeing them. He had learned that lesson the hard way. But he had learned it. 3 months later, Thomas returned to duty. He wore his red uniform and tall black hat with pride. But things were different now. The other guards knew his story. They respected him even more. On his first day back, Prince William walked past during inspection. He stopped and looked at Thomas. "Welcome back, Guard Bennett," William said formally. "Thank you, Your Highness," Thomas replied. They exchanged a look of understanding, of respect, of forgiveness. As William walked away, Thomas stood tall. His uniform was perfect. His posture was correct. But more importantly, his heart was full. His daughter was healthy. His job was restored. His dignity was intact. Sometimes, he thought, the hardest moments in life lead to the greatest blessings. That evening, Thomas came home to find Emma doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up and smiled when she saw him in his uniform. "You look like a hero again, Daddy," she said. Thomas hugged her. "You know what, sweetheart? We're all heroes. Your mommy for being strong when things were hard. You for being brave through your treatment. And even Prince William for having the courage to admit when he was wrong." "What about you, Daddy?" Emma asked. Thomas smiled. "Me? I'm just a man who loves his family very much." And that, Thomas realized, was the most important thing of all. The story of the prince and the royal guard spread far beyond England. It was told in schools and homes. It was used as an example in leadership classes. It became a reminder that everyone makes mistakes. But what matters is having the courage to make things right. Years later, people would still talk about it, not as a scandal, but as a story of redemption, of compassion, of humanity. It taught the world that titles don't make you a good leader. Character does. It showed that admitting mistakes takes more courage than hiding them. It proved that sometimes the most powerful thing a person can say is simply, "I was wrong." And most importantly, it reminded everyone that behind every rule, every protocol, and every uniform, there's a human being with hopes, fears, and struggles. We just have to take the time to see them.